Good morning, boys and girls. Today, we are going to continue our story about Joseph. But first, let's review what we learned last week. Remember in the beginning of our story, how Joseph's father made him a coat of many colors, and his brothers were very jealous of his coat. Then Joseph had a dream. He had a dream that the sun, the moon, and the stars would all one day bow down to him. This would mean that he would rule over his family. This made his brothers very jealous. Then Joseph's father sent him to the fields to check on his brothers. When he was at the fields checking on his brothers, they sold him into slavery, then took his coat back to his father and told him that a wild animal had eaten him. When he became a slave, he was a slave in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife then lied about Joseph and had him thrown in prison. While Joseph was in prison, he met the Pharaoh's wine taster and bread maker. The wine taster and bread maker both had dreams, and they didn't know what they meant. Joseph interpreted their dreams, and both of those dreams and his interpretation came true. Then the wine taster went back to work for Pharaoh. He forgot all about Joseph until Pharaoh had 2 dreams. Then he remembered Joseph, and he told Pharaoh about Joseph. At the end of our story last week, Joseph had just interpreted Pharaoh's dreams. And we are continuing today to find out if Pharaoh believed what Joseph had told him.
The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in 2 forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon. And now, Pharaoh, look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take 1/5 of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you."
Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, "Make way!" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, but without your word no one will lift a hand or foot in all of Egypt." Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zephaniah-Paneah, and he also gave him a wife.
During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city, he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it. Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain, like the sand of the sea. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. Before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh, and said, "It is because God has made me forget all of my trouble and all of my father's household." The second son he named Ephraim, and said, "It is because God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering." The 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end.
Then the 7 years when there wasn't enough food began. It happened exactly as Joseph said it would. People began to cry to Pharaoh because they were hungry. He told the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph, do what he tells you." Joseph then opened the storerooms, and he sold grain to the Egyptians because people were very hungry all over Egypt. People from all of the other countries came to Egypt. They came to buy grain from Joseph.
Genesis 42, 1 through 16. When Jacob learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" he said. "Behold, I have heard that there is grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he feared that harm might happen to him. Thus, the sons of Israel came to buy among the others who came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Now Joseph was governor over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the ground. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he treated them like strangers and spoke roughly to them. "Where do you come from?" he said. They said, "From the land of Canaan, to buy food." And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamed of them. And he said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." They said to him, "No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been spies." He said to them, "No, it is the nakedness of the land that you have come to see." And they said, "We are servants, our 12 brothers, the son of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is no more." But Joseph said to them, "It is as I said to you, you are spies. But this you shall be tested by the life of Pharaoh. You shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother, while you remain confined, that your words may be tested, whether there is truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh. Surely you are spies."
Joseph, still not recognized by his brothers, put them in custody for 3 days. He charged them as spies so that he could judge their character by observing them. He then tells them all of them can return home to take food to their starving families, but Simeon would have to remain in Egypt to make sure that they return back. The brothers, unaware that Joseph understood their language, talk to one another and say that this must be punishment for what they did to Joseph so many years ago. And as Joseph heard that, he turned away and wept.
Did Joseph forgive his brothers?
Yes.
Yes.
Joseph gave orders to have their bags filled with grain and put each man's money back into his sack. The brothers got on their donkeys and left. At night, one brother stopped to feed his donkey and saw the money on top of his sack when he opened his bag. "My money has been given back," he said. They had a sinking feeling in their hearts and began to tremble. "What has God done to us?" they asked. They came to their father Jacob and told him everything. They said, "The man who was in charge spoke to us in a mean way. He treated us like we were spies. We told him we were honest. He said he would know we were honest if we left one brother with him and came back to get our youngest brother. He promised to give our brother back, and we would be free to trade the land." When they emptied their sacks, there was money in all of their bags. Now they were really scared. Their father said to them, "Joseph is gone. Simon is gone. Now you want to take Benjamin?" But Reuben promised to take care of Benjamin. Jacob was not ready to let Benjamin go.
Genesis 43, 1 through 15. Because there was still famine, Joseph's brothers needed more food. Judah remembered that Joseph had insisted that when they returned to Egypt for more food, they must bring their youngest brother, Benjamin. He convinced his father, Israel, to let him bring Benjamin back to Egypt. They also packed some of the best products from their land, some balm, honey, spices, myrrh, pistachios, and almonds, and double the amount of silver to bring back to Joseph in Egypt.
When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the servant, "Take these men and prepare a meal." And the servant did as Joseph told him and took the brothers to Joseph's house. But the brothers were frightened when they were going. They thought, "We were brought here because of the silver that was put back into our sacks the first time. He wants to attack us and take our donkeys and make us slaves." So they went up to Joseph's servant and spoke to him at the entrance and said, "We beg your pardon, our lord." They said, "We came down here the first time to buy food. But at the place where we stopped for the night, we opened our sacks and each of us found silver in the mouth of his sack. So we have brought it back with us. We have also brought additional silver with us to buy food. We don't know who put the silver in our sacks." "It's all right," the servant said. "Don't be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, has given you treasure in your sacks. I received your silver." The servant then took the men out to Joseph's house and gave them water to wash their feet and provided food for their donkeys. They prepared their gifts for Joseph's arrival at noon because they heard they were going to have a meal. When Joseph came home, they presented their gifts to him that they had brought to the house and bowed down before him on the ground. He asked them how they were, and then he said, "How is your aged father that you told me about? Is he still living?" They replied, "Your servant, our father, is still alive and well." And he looked around the room and saw his brother Benjamin and asked, "Is this your youngest brother, the one that you told me about?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." Deeply moved at the sight of his brother, Joseph left the room and looked for a place to cry, and he went into his bedroom and wept. After he had washed his face and came out, he got control of himself and said, "Serve the food." So they served him by himself, and the brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with them by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat with the Hebrews. The men had been seated before him in order of their ages, from the firstborn to the youngest, and they looked at each other in astonishment when portions were served to them from Joseph's table. Benjamin's portion was 5 times bigger than anybody else's, so they feasted and drank freely with him.
Joseph's brothers were in Egypt to buy grain.
Joseph told his worker to place the royal silver cup in Benjamin's bag of grain to make it look like Benjamin stole it.
Once the brothers left to go back to Canaan, Joseph told his worker to track them down and accuse them of stealing.
The brothers said they would not steal. They said the worker could search their bags and punish them if they had stolen.
The worker told the brothers that if he found the cup, the one who had stolen it would become a slave.
The worker searched their bags. He found the silver cup in Benjamin's bag.
The brothers go in front of Joseph. Because the cup was found in Benjamin's bag, he would have to become a slave of Joseph. Judah, who was Joseph's brother, begged Joseph not to make Benjamin a slave, because it would kill his father if he did not return home.
Genesis 45, verses 1 through 20. With many people still in the room, Joseph asked them all to leave so he could tell his brothers exactly who he was. His brothers were speechless to know that he was still alive. Joseph told them not to be upset or angry for selling him into slavery. Joseph told his brothers that God sent him. He was to let them all know that the famine would last another 5 years. So God wanted Joseph to help keep as many people alive as possible. Joseph encouraged his brothers to let their father know that he is now the master over all the land, and encouraged them to live in the region of Goshen so that the entire family, the children and grandchildren, flocks, herds, and everything else they owned could all be together. And if they didn't, Joseph told them they would all starve. Joseph and his brother Benjamin embraced, and then all the brothers cried and talked with each other. The brothers arrived in Egypt, and the Pharaoh and his officials were excited to hear this. The Pharaoh agreed to give the best of all the land of Egypt to Joseph and his family.
Joseph gave his brothers wagons, as the Pharaoh commanded. He gave them food and water, and gave Benjamin 300 pieces of silver. He sent their father 10 donkeys carrying all of the good things of Egypt. The brothers left Egypt and went to Canaan to their father Jacob. The brothers told their father that Joseph was alive. They told him all that Joseph had said to them, and Jacob was overjoyed and decided to go and see Joseph.
Then Jacob started out with everything that belonged to him. When he reached Beersheba, he offered a sacrifice. That night, God spoke to him in a vision. "Jacob, Jacob," he said. "Here I am," Jacob replied. "I am God. I am the God of your father," he said. "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt. There I will make you into a great nation. I will go down to Egypt with you. You can be sure that I will bring you back again. And when you die, Joseph will close your eyes with his own hands." Then Jacob left Beersheba. He left with his sons and his whole family. They loaded up everything they owned, including their livestock. In total, there were 70 family members in Egypt.
Now Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to get directions to Goshen. When they arrived in the region of Goshen, Joseph had his chariot made ready and went to Goshen to meet his father Israel. As soon as Joseph appeared before him, he threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. Israel said to Joseph, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen for myself that you are still alive." Then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and speak to Pharaoh and will say to him, 'My brothers and my father's household, who were living in the land of Canaan, have come to me. The men are shepherds, they tend livestock, and they have brought along their flocks and herds and everything they own. When Pharaoh calls you in and asks, 'What is your occupation?' you should answer, 'Your servants have tended livestock from our boyhood on, just as our fathers did.' Then you will be allowed to settle in the region of Goshen, for all shepherds are detestable to the Egyptians."
Joseph brought his father and 5 of his brothers that traveled from Canaan with their flocks, herds, and everything that they owned to Pharaoh. Pharaoh told Joseph that the land of Egypt was open to him, and he should let his father and brothers live in the best part of the land, Goshen. Then Joseph brought his father to meet Pharaoh, and Jacob gave Pharaoh his blessing.
So Joseph settled his father and brothers in Egypt. He gave them the property in the best part of the land, just as Pharaoh had directed him to do. Joseph also provided food for his father and brothers. He provided food for them and the rest of his father's family. Joseph had faced many trials in his life. He was sold into slavery. He was thrown into prison for a crime that he didn't commit. But had he not gone through those trials, he wouldn't have been able to save so many people's lives. He not only saved his own family's life by providing food during the drought, but he saved many other Egyptian lives. These trials were actually blessings in disguise. These past few months, we have had our own trials. Maybe we should look at these trials as blessings in disguise. We have been blessed to be able to spend more time with our families. I know many of you have had a lot more family dinners, some family game nights. I know some of you have done crafts. Some of you have baked and done other fun activities with your family. So maybe we should look at all these things that we've been able to do as blessings during this time. Boys and girls, thank you for joining us again this week.